Right now, while you're watching this video, something important is happening inside your body. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. And the outcome depends on a decision you're going to make very soon, probably without even realizing it. This decision has nothing to do with eating clean, counting calories, or cutting carbs. It's not about willpower. It's not even about exercise in the way most people think about it. It's about timing. After every meal, your body enters a critical window, a short stretch of time where things can go one of two ways. Either your blood sugar rises smoothly and your body handles it with ease, or it spikes aggressively, creating stress that adds up day after day, year after year. Most people never notice this happening. They feel fine. They assume everything is under control. But beneath the surface, a quiet battle is playing out inside their bloodstream. And here's the part most people don't realize. You don't need more discipline to win this battle. You just need to understand when to move, not how hard to move. Because when it comes to blood sugar, insulin, and metabolic health, timing beats effort. After you finish a meal, especially one that includes carbohydrates like bread, rice, pasta, or even fruit, glucose begins entering your bloodstream. At first, it's subtle. Then it accelerates. Within about 30 minutes, blood sugar levels that were calmly sitting around 90 milligrams per deciliter can surge past 160, even 180 milligrams per deciliter. That's nearly double. And here's where most people shrug and say, "So what? It comes back down." That assumption is where the real problem begins. Every sharp rise in blood sugar creates something called oxidative stress. Think of it like microscopic rust forming inside your blood vessels. You don't feel it happening. There's no pain, no warning signal. But those delicate cells lining your arteries take tiny hits every single time glucose spikes and crashes. This isn't just a concern for people with diabetes. Large studies show that post-meal blood sugar spikes are strongly linked to heart disease, brain fog, memory decline, and early cognitive issues, even in people who are otherwise considered healthy. In fact, researchers have found that how high your glucose rises after meals can predict future cardiovascular risk better than fasting blood sugar alone. That heavy, sleepy feeling after lunch, that mental haze in the afternoon, that slow loss of energy you chalk up to age. Those aren't random, they're signals. And the most dangerous part is that this damage doesn't happen once. It happens 3 times a day, every day, quietly compounding over years. For years, we've been given the same advice. Eat better, exercise more, wait for your food to digest before you move. And on the surface, none of that sounds wrong. In fact, most of it comes from good intentions. But good intentions don't always tell the full story. What they often miss is when the problem actually starts. Most health guidance focuses on what you do hours later. Go to the gym, hit your step count, burn calories. But by the time most people think about exercise, the damage from that meal has already begun. Blood sugar has already spiked. Insulin has already surged. Stress inside your blood vessels is already underway. You're trying to clean up a mess after it's happened. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Doing more later doesn't undo what happens earlier. That's why someone can eat healthy, work out regularly, and still struggle with energy crashes, stubborn belly fat, or creeping metabolic issues. It's not because they're lazy. It's because they're acting at the wrong moment. This is where most people get it wrong. The body doesn't just care how much you move. It cares when you move. And once you understand the mechanism behind that timing, everything starts to click. Every time you eat, your body has one main job: move glucose out of your bloodstream and into cells where it can be used for energy. Most people are familiar with the first pathway that handles this. Your pancreas releases insulin. Insulin travels through your blood, and it signals cells to open up and accept sugar. That's the system everyone talks about. That's the system most people think they're relying on. But here's what almost no one explains clearly. There is a second pathway, and it doesn't depend on insulin at all. Your muscles are not passive tissue. They are active storage units. And when they contract, something remarkable happens. Inside those muscle cells, a sensor switches on. That signal tells special transport proteins, often described as tiny doors, to move to the surface of the cell. These doors pull glucose directly out of your bloodstream and into the muscle, without waiting for insulin's permission. This is your built-in backup system. It works even when insulin isn't working well. It works in people with insulin resistance. It works quietly, efficiently, and immediately. The catch is simple. This system only activates when your muscles are actually moving. When you eat and then sit down, your muscles have no reason to open those doors. Glucose stays circulating in your blood. Your pancreas has to shout louder, releasing more insulin to force sugar into storage. Over time, that constant pressure wears the system down. This is the moment where timing becomes everything. Because muscle contractions don't just help later, they help right now. At the exact moment, glucose is flooding your bloodstream. And once you see that, a critical question naturally follows. If movement activates this powerful pathway, does it matter when you move? For a long time, the standard recommendation sounded logical. Wait at least 30 minutes after eating before you move. Give your body time to digest. Avoid discomfort. Then, if you want to exercise, do it later and do it longer. On paper, that makes sense. In reality, the body doesn't work on paper. When researchers finally tested this idea, the results surprised almost everyone. Participants were given the same meal and placed into different scenarios. In one, they stayed completely still after eating. In another, they waited and then walked for a full 30 minutes. In the third, they stood up immediately and walked for just 10 minutes at an easy, comfortable pace. Logic would suggest that the longer walk would produce the best results. It didn't. The short walk done immediately after eating produced the lowest blood sugar spike, the smoothest glucose curve, and the least metabolic stress over the next 2 hours. The longer walk helped, but by the time it started, glucose had already surged. This is the difference between interception and cleanup. When you move right away, your muscles begin pulling glucose out of the bloodstream as it enters. When you wait, you're chasing sugar that has already caused damage. That's why timing beats duration. 10 minutes at the right moment can outperform 30 minutes done too late. Not because more movement is bad, but because the body responds differently depending on when the signal arrives. To see how dramatic this difference really is, we need to walk through what happens inside your body minute by minute after a meal. Picture the moments right after you finish a meal. The food hits your stomach, digestion begins, and glucose starts moving into your bloodstream. In the first 10 minutes, it's a slow rise. Then it accelerates. If you remain seated, your muscles stay quiet. They don't need fuel. They don't open their doors. Blood sugar continues climbing, and insulin begins pouring out in response. Now, imagine a different choice. Within those first 10 minutes, you stand up and start walking. Nothing intense, just a relaxed, steady pace. As your muscles contract, that second pathway switches on. Inside your muscle cells, sensors activate. Transporters rush to the surface. Glucose that was heading toward a spike gets pulled directly out of your blood and used for energy instead. Between minutes 10 and 20, the difference becomes obvious. Instead of surging toward dangerous levels, blood sugar tops out lower and stabilizes faster. That gap may only look like 20 or 30 points on a chart, but biologically, it's the difference between stress and stability. By minutes 20 to 30, you sit back down. But the benefit doesn't end there. Your muscles remain more sensitive to insulin for hours. Those glucose doors don't slam shut immediately. Any remaining sugar is handled more efficiently, creating a smooth curve instead of sharp peaks and crashes. And here's what surprises most people. Gentle movement doesn't disrupt digestion. It actually helps it. Walking stimulates natural intestinal contractions, reducing bloating and that heavy, sluggish feeling many people associate with eating. This small window after meals isn't trivial. It's one of the most powerful leverage points you have for metabolic health. There's another strategy that often comes up in conversations about metabolic health: walking before your first meal of the day. When you wake up in the morning, you've typically gone 10 to 12 hours without eating. Blood sugar is low. Insulin is quiet. Your body is in what researchers call a fasted state. If you walk during this window, your muscles still need fuel, but there's no incoming glucose from food. So your body adapts. It begins releasing fatty acids from stored fat and sends them to your muscles to be burned for energy. This is why fasted walking is often associated with increased fat burning and improved metabolic flexibility. Over time, your body becomes better at switching between fuel sources instead of relying on sugar alone. But here's the nuance most viral advice leaves out. Fasted walking also increases cortisol, a stress hormone that helps mobilize energy. For someone who is well rested and metabolically healthy, this can be beneficial. For someone who is already stressed, underslept, or hormonally imbalanced, it can backfire. Instead of improving fat loss, that extra cortisol can promote fat storage around the midsection and leave you feeling drained, shaky, or anxious. This doesn't mean fasted walking is bad. It means it's a tool, not a rule. If you try it, start gently. Pay attention to how you feel. Your body's feedback matters more than any trend. Once you strip away the hype and the extremes, the most effective strategy turns out to be surprisingly simple. You don't need a gym membership. You don't need special equipment. You don't need to carve out an hour of your day. The foundation is one small, repeatable habit. After each main meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, stand up and walk for 10 minutes. That's it. Walk around your home. Walk around the block. Walk while you're on a phone call. Walk in place if that's all the space you have. The pace doesn't need to be fast. You should still be able to breathe comfortably and hold a conversation. Consistency matters far more than intensity. This approach works because it aligns with your biology instead of fighting it. You're not forcing your body to clean up damage later. You're intercepting glucose at the moment it enters your bloodstream. That timing changes everything. And the beauty of this habit is how adaptable it is. A busy parent can walk after dinner while the kids play. Someone working from home can step away from their desk after lunch. A retiree can turn post-meal walks into a calming daily ritual instead of a chore. This isn't about perfection. It's about cooperation with your body. Small actions, repeated daily, create profound physiological changes over time. When this becomes part of your daily rhythm, the changes don't happen overnight, but they compound quietly in your favor. Week after week, your muscle cells begin building more mitochondria, the tiny power plants responsible for turning fuel into usable energy. More mitochondria means better glucose handling, steadier energy, and fewer crashes after meals. Your insulin receptors become more responsive, so your pancreas doesn't have to work as hard just to keep blood sugar in range. Over months, this shows up in measurable ways. Average blood sugar comes down. Post-meal spikes flatten. HbA1c, a marker that reflects your blood sugar control over roughly 3 months, begins to drop. That's not just a number, it's a signal that your internal environment is becoming less inflammatory and less stressful to your tissues. Large population studies back this up. In Japan, researchers analyzing data from millions of adults found that adding even small amounts of daily movement significantly reduced disease risk and overall mortality. This insight led to a nationwide initiative encouraging people to simply move a little more each day. Not harder, not longer, just smarter. And here's the most important part to remember. Your body isn't broken. It's incredibly adaptive. It's been responding exactly as designed. You just hadn't been giving it the right signals at the right time.